Greetings, viewers of The Pioneer. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. As the Pioneer team, we continue to provide you with the details about the Russia-Ukraine war. In a moment, we will examine the latest situation on the front line with a map. When we look at the latest reports, we see that the pressure areas on the front line are largely the same. The advancement efforts of the Russian armed forces continue. However, the continuation of these efforts also increases criticisms against the Russian war leadership because these efforts cause both personal losses, material losses, and equipment losses to the Russian army. According to reports, the most striking criticisms of the Russian armed forces at the moment is that the commanders serving in the region are old-fashioned. Russian sources criticize Russian commanders for not using new technologies and strategies. Of course, since these criticisms cause problems within the Russian army, the attack power of the Russian army is greatly decreasing. The successes they have achieved so far have also been achieved thanks to the great losses. Therefore, we can talk about the gains with a very high price. So, what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my hard-working team by using the super thanks button below the video. Let's start, if you are ready, the Pioneer reports. Let's start our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Kherson front line. First, let's see the Kherson region on the map. As we have stated many times in our previous reports, the Ukrainian bridgeheads here pose an intense threat to the units of the Russian armed forces. Of course, the Russian army is also looking for ways to eliminate the threat here. As we mentioned in our previous reports, the Kherson front line is now dominated by irregular warfare techniques. Therefore, regular army strategies are useless here. So what do we mean when we say this sentence? In the war of liberal armies units, the front lines are determined. Units are linked to each other by a chain of command. The objectives are clear and precise. You either advance or defend the area. However, the situation is different in unorganized warfare. When you apply unorganized warfare techniques, you do not have a clear object. Your most important goal is to inflict as many casualties on the enemy as possible. For this purpose, harassing fires are fired or traps are laid. Therefore, if the units of the Russian armed forces want to succeed here, they should start applying the rules of irregular warfare just like the Ukrainian army. At the moment, however, there is a still indication that the Russian military leadership will make a move. According to reports, the Russian armed forces are still using a regular army strategy to target Ukrainian positions in the direction of Kherson. However, despite this, the Russian army still seems to have failed to destroy Ukrainian bridgeheads in the region. A similar situation exists on the Delta Islands. The Delta Islands are one of the places where unorganized warfare techniques are applied most intensively. In our reports, we talked about the dominance of the Ukrainian army in the Delta Islands. However, this dominance is not in the form of establishing a control point in the islands. According to reports, the Ukrainian army sometimes goes on these islets and sometimes leave and sets traps. During these traps, many Russian soldiers are destroyed. In addition, the channels that feed the Ukrainian army's irregular warfare strategies in the Delta Islets seems to be fortified. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Ukrainian positions in the vicinity of Kherson, Krinky, and Antoniivka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted the areas of Olapristan, Oleshki, and Korsunka. Now let's briefly touch on the latest situation on the Zaporizhia front line. According to the latest reports, the Zaporizhia front line is quite calm compared to the last week. There is a systematic pressure by the Russian armed forces in the area that the Ukrainian army captured during the summer offensives. However, so far they have not achieved results. According to reports, Russian attacks on the Ukrainian positions in the vicinity of Novoprokopivka and Novofedoryovka have intensified. However, Ukrainian defense forces are largely holding their positions. The borderline is stable. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Robodny, Orikhiv, Molotokh-Makhta, and Novodanilivka. In contrast, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Verbov, Novopokrovka, Luhivsky, and Bakhmut. Bakhtai. Let's continue by analyzing the latest developments on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, the Donetsk front line, the Russian armed forces captured forts on the southern outskirts of Novomikhailivka. The attacks on the fortified areas in Pobeda seems to have caused a slight change in the demarcation line. However, confirmation is still needed. In Permyskoye, the fighting took an opposing character. Here we can speak of an attempt by units of the Ukrainian armed forces to surround the Russian forces. For the Russian armed forces, there is a threat from the flanks. If the Ukrainian army succeeds in this, the situation will change considerably. In Avdiivka, the Russian forces continued their offensives from the southeast from the industrial zone and from the northeast near the coking plant. However, they were not successful. The offensives in the direction of Stepnoe has also made no progress so far. Russian armed sources claim that the Russian army managed to take new positions in the Rechetin area behind the railway lines. However, the sources don't have any confirmation about these advances. When we look at the artillery activity in the region, we see that the artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Pobeda, Novomikhailivka, Horlivka, Nevolsky, Krasnohorivka, Permovskoye, and Severny. In contrast, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Opitny, Pitsky, Validny, Vasily, and the village of Krasnohorivka. Let's also look at the Luhansk front line. According to the latest reports, the Russian army wants to put pressure on the Ukrainian army here as well. However, we have already mentioned before, the Ukrainian army already has a strong defense fortifications in this region. Even if the Ukrainian troops in this region were shifted to other points, the Russian army can't advance. According to the latest reports, fierce counter-clashes are taking place in Sherbyanovsky forested area in Dibrova. We see that the attacks are being carried out by the Russian armed forces in Ternov and Sinkovy. However, so far there have not been significant changes in the border line. Let us continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted Zherichny, Yapolovki, and Terny. In contrast, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted Dibrova, Kozymsky, Karaminia, and Shipilivki. Let me know what you think. Do you think the Ukrainian military strategy in the Kherson is successful? Will the Ukrainian army's strategy of irregular warfare work? Do you think that on the Donetsk front line, Ukrainian army will be able to break the pressure of the Russian armed forces? Write it down in the comments, because you know that I read and care about all your comments.